My name is Maya Quinn, and I never realized how much silence could hurt until it came from the people I loved most. I'd moved 2 hours away from my hometown for a new job, a position I'd worked for years to earn. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, and for the first time, I could finally afford a small home that was mine. I told my family the news over dinner, hoping they'd be proud. My dad smiled politely. My stepmom, Sandra, gave a thin nod. My stepsister, Jenna, didn't even look up from her phone. "So you're just leaving?" she said. "You really think you'll be happier away from us?" I tried to laugh it off. "It's not about leaving, it's about starting something new." But that night, when I drove back to my apartment, my chest felt heavy. The move went smoothly, but the first few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. No one called. No one texted. I told myself they were busy, that maybe they needed time to adjust to my absence. Still, I kept reaching out, sending photos of my new place, updates about my work, even invitations to visit. Each message read seen, but none were answered. When my birthday came, I baked a small cake by myself, waiting for my phone to buzz. It never did. Not one call. Not even from my father. I stared at that silent screen until tears blurred the candles. That was when it hit me, maybe they didn't forget. Maybe they just didn't care. Growing up, I was used to being the outsider. My mom passed when I was 9, and my dad remarried a year later. Sandra was polite at first, but cold. Everything I did seemed to irritate her. When Jenna came into the picture, perfect grades, perfect smile, perfect daughter, I faded into the background. I tried harder. Got scholarships. Found internships. Paid my way through college. But no matter what I did, I never measured up to the family she'd built around herself. Still, I kept forgiving them, because that's what family is supposed to mean: patience, understanding, second chances. Until that year, when the silence stretched too long to ignore. I stopped reaching out. I focused on work. I built my own life. And slowly, painfully, I learned to live without their voices in it. Then, 3 years later, something happened that I could have never predicted. My company went public. My shares skyrocketed overnight, and just like that, the quiet, lonely woman they ignored became a millionaire. But money doesn't fix loneliness, it just changes who notices it. Because a few months later, the same family who ghosted me walked straight into my new home, and when Sandra saw where I lived, her face went pale. When Sandra walked through the tall glass doors of my new house, she froze like she'd stepped into another world. Her eyes swept over the marble floors, the curved staircase, the chandelier that glittered above her head. "This is your place?" she asked, her voice caught somewhere between disbelief and envy. My father stood beside her, silent, adjusting his cufflinks as if trying to act unfazed. Jenna, now married and carrying a designer purse that probably cost half my monthly mortgage, looked around with a forced laugh. "Wow, Maya. You've really done well for yourself." I smiled politely, pretending I couldn't hear the tension under her words. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I have." The truth was, I hadn't expected them to show up at all. I hadn't seen them in almost 4 years, not a single message, not a call, not even when I sent out a Christmas card the first year after I moved. So when my father called out of the blue that morning, saying they were in the neighborhood and wanted to stop by, I hesitated. But curiosity got the better of me. I told him I'd be home. Maybe, somewhere deep down, I wanted to see their faces when they realized how much I'd built without them. And judging by the way Sandra's jaw tightened as she looked around, I wasn't disappointed. "You've decorated beautifully," she said finally, her voice syrupy. "Did you hire someone?" "No," I replied. "I did it myself." She blinked, as if the idea of me being capable of that was somehow impossible. My dad cleared his throat. "You must be doing well at work," he said. "Better than we expected." "I guess hard work pays off," I said evenly. Jenna chimed in. So what is it you do again? I run operations for a tech firm, I said. We had a few successful launches. That was the simplified version. The truth was that I'd been part of a small startup that grew faster than anyone predicted. When it went public, my stock options became life-changing. I wasn't showing off, I'd earned every bit of it, but I could see how the realization unsettled them. The same family who had once treated me like the forgotten one was now standing in my living room, trying to figure out how I'd gotten ahead. Sandra smiled again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. It's nice to see you happy, she said, and for a second, I almost believed her. Then she added, you know, your father and I have been having some financial struggles lately. The market's been rough. My stomach tightened. I saw where this was going. I folded my arms and said nothing. Because this wasn't a family visit, it was the beginning of something else entirely. I didn't know it yet, but that conversation in my living room would become the spark that lit the ugliest fight my family had ever started. Sandra sat down on my cream-colored couch like she owned it, crossing her legs and glancing around as if already calculating what everything cost. It must be nice, she said with a faint smile, having so much space to yourself. Must get lonely though. I knew what she was doing, trying to plant guilt, soften me up. My dad leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Your stepmom's right. It's great that you've done well, sweetheart, but we're going through a rough time. The business took a hit, and the bank's threatening foreclosure on the house. I stayed silent, watching them carefully. It wasn't that I didn't have empathy, it was that I'd been here before. The only time they ever reached out was when they needed something. And every single time, I gave in. I'm sorry to hear that, I said softly. That must be hard. Sandra's lips twitched. Well, we were hoping maybe you could help us bridge the gap. Just a small loan. Family helping family. My chest tightened, but my expression didn't change. How much? I asked, and she perked up immediately. Oh, just enough to keep things afloat for now. Maybe 100,000? The number hit me like a slap. 100,000? I repeated, my voice flat. That's not exactly a small loan. My dad spoke up quickly, we'd pay you back, of course. It's just temporary. I let out a quiet laugh, shaking my head. You haven't called me in 4 years, and now you want $100,000? Sandra's eyes narrowed. Don't be dramatic, Maya. We thought you'd be happy to help. You've clearly done well. It's not like you need all this space or all this money to yourself. The room fell silent. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. This wasn't about need, it was about control. They saw my success as something they deserved to claim. You're right, I said finally, my voice steady. I have done well. And you're also right, I don't need all this. But I worked for it. Alone. Without a cent of help from you or anyone else. My dad sighed, as if I were a difficult child refusing to share a toy. We're still your family, he said quietly. You wouldn't even have this if we hadn't supported you growing up. I met his gaze. Supported me? You mean the years of being ignored, blamed, and compared to Jenna? That support? Sandra's expression hardened. Don't twist things. We did our best. And this attitude, this bitterness, is exactly why you're alone. That word hit harder than I wanted it to. Alone. It was her favorite weapon. But I wasn't that same girl anymore. Maybe I am alone, I said. But I'm at peace. And you don't get to take that from me. I stood, signaling that the conversation was over. Sandra's smile vanished. My father's jaw tightened. You'll regret this, she said as she stood up. Family always remembers who helped and who turned their back. I didn't realize how serious her warning was until a week later, when I found out exactly what they'd done behind my back. It started with a phone call from my bank. The woman on the other end sounded cautious, the kind of tone that makes your stomach drop before you even know why. "Ms. Quinn," she said, "we just wanted to confirm a wire transfer request for $200,000 to an account under the name Sandra Porter." My grip tightened on the phone. "What?" I said sharply. "I never authorized that." There was a pause. "It came through your online banking credentials, ma'am. Same login, same verification." My heart began to race. "Cancel it," I said immediately. "Now." She assured me it hadn't gone through yet, but I could hear her typing quickly, muttering into her headset. When she came back, her voice had changed. "It's been stopped. You should visit the branch today to secure your accounts." I hung up, pulse hammering, and checked my email. There it was as a confirmation request I hadn't seen before, buried in my inbox. Somehow, someone had gotten into my account. And I didn't need to guess who. When I got to the bank, I sat with the fraud department, explaining everything. The man in charge, a sharp-looking investigator named Mr. Lewis, asked, "Have you given anyone access to your accounts?" "No," I said. "Not since I opened them." He nodded slowly. "It looks like the login came from a device registered to your hometown's IP address." That was enough confirmation for me. I felt anger mixing with disbelief. They hadn't just asked for help, they'd tried to take it. I spent hours locking down every account, changing passwords, freezing cards, and setting alerts. By the end of the day, my nerves were raw, and all I could think about was how far they were willing to go. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. No greeting, no name, just 4 words. "You brought this on yourself." My hands went cold. I tried to trace the number, but it was masked. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent screenshots to the police, documenting everything. Officer Kim called back the next morning. "It could be harassment, but unless they contact you again or steal funds, it's hard to prosecute," she said. Her tone was sympathetic but practical. I understood. They hadn't crossed the legal line completely, but they were towing it. I thought about confronting them directly, but what would that do? They'd deny it. They always denied everything. For days, I didn't sleep well. I'd wake up at every sound, double-check my locks, stare at my phone waiting for another message. Then, one evening, as I was heading to bed, I noticed something strange. My security camera app showed motion on my driveway. When I opened the feed, my breath caught. A car was parked across the street, lights off, engine running. I couldn't see the driver's face, but the license plate was familiar. It was my father's. The next morning, I realized this wasn't just manipulation anymore. My family was watching me, and I was about to find out why. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the house made my stomach tighten. By sunrise, I checked the camera again, nothing. The car was gone. But the unease stayed. I decided to drive straight to the police station. Officer Kim met me in the lobby, coffee in hand, concern etched across her face. I showed her the footage, zooming in on the license plate. "That's my dad's car," I said. "He was outside my house last night." She watched closely, then looked up. "Did he make contact with you?" "No," I said. "But he was there. Just sitting." Kim sighed. "It's unnerving, but legally, he didn't trespass. Still, I'll file a report and flag your address for extra patrols." I nodded, trying to hide the frustration that was bubbling up. The law protected me only once damage was done. By the time I got home, I had a voicemail waiting, from Sandra. Her voice was sharp and trembling with forced politeness. "Maya, we heard you've been spreading stories about us. That's not fair. You're making things worse than they are." I deleted it without finishing. Then I blocked her number. I'd spent my whole life trying to explain myself to people who never wanted to understand. That stopped now. A few days later, I went to meet Daniel Cho, a lawyer recommended by a friend. His office was neat and quiet, lined with law books and certificates. I explained everything, the money attempt, the messages, the car outside. He listened carefully, jotting notes. "You've got enough to start a civil protection case," he said. "Even without physical confrontation, the intent is clear. Especially if they're trying to access your finances." "What would that do?" I asked. "Restraining orders, asset protection, maybe a civil injunction," he said. "They can't come near you, your property, or contact you. And if they try, it becomes criminal." I hesitated, my throat tight. It feels wrong, suing my own family. Daniel looked at me evenly. "What they did stopped being family behavior the moment they violated your trust." That night, I drafted the paperwork with his help. It felt surreal, typing their names under respondents. My hands shook, but I pressed submit. There was no going back. I thought that might be the end of it, legal action would scare them off. But 2 days later, as I came home from work, I saw something on my doorstep. A small box, no return address. I picked it up slowly, heart pounding. Inside was a single photo, me, taken through my window while I slept on the couch. Underneath, a note written in neat, deliberate handwriting, "You should have kept quiet." My phone slipped from my hand. They weren't just angry, they were watching me. My walls, my locks, my cameras, it all felt useless. I called Daniel immediately. He didn't hesitate. "We're escalating this," he said. "You're no longer dealing with family conflict. This is harassment and stalking. Let me contact a private investigator." As I hung up, I glanced out the window, my reflection staring back at me. For the first time, I understood, this wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, and they couldn't stand that I had finally taken mine back. The next day, the investigator uncovered something that made my blood run cold. My father and Sandra weren't acting alone. The investigator's name was Evan Miles, a quiet man in his 40s with the kind of calm that made you feel he'd seen it all. When he arrived at my house the next morning, he already had a folder tucked under his arm. "Before we start," he said, "I need you to know what I'm about to show you isn't easy to hear." My pulse quickened. He opened the folder and slid a few printed photos across the table. Grainy, taken from security footage. The first showed my father meeting with a man I didn't recognize, tall, dark coat, face blurred. The next photo hit harder. Sandra, handing that same man a stack of envelopes outside what looked like a storage facility. Evan's tone stayed even. "That's not random. We traced the license plate of his car. It belongs to Gavin Doyle, a private broker. He's been arrested before, for fraud, identity theft, and asset manipulation. It seems your parents hired him." I stared at him. "For what?" He met my eyes. "To access and liquidate anything tied to your name." I felt my stomach twist. "You mean, they're still trying to steal from me?" Evan nodded. "They tried to transfer property ownership records under a forged signature last week. The title office flagged it because your social was used incorrectly. That's how we found it." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just harassment, they were actively trying to erase me from my own life. Evan leaned back. "I've seen families fight over money, but this is revenge. They're using intimidation and manipulation to push you into giving up your assets voluntarily. It's psychological warfare." I sat there in silence, my throat tight, trying to make sense of how the people who raised me could plan something like this. "What do I do now?" I asked quietly. "We build a trail," he said. "We collect everything, calls, texts, financial activity, surveillance. Once we have enough, your lawyer can move this from civil to criminal." That night, Evan installed hidden cameras around the property, tiny, almost invisible. "If they show up again, we'll have proof," he said. I thanked him, though my voice was barely steady. When he left, I sat in the dark for a long time, the only sound the faint hum of my refrigerator. Every shadow outside felt alive. Around midnight, my phone buzzed, a notification from the new security feed. I tapped the app. There, in black and white, was Sandra, standing in my driveway. Alone. Her face pale, her expression unreadable. She stayed for nearly 3 minutes before walking away. I sent the clip to Evan and Daniel immediately. Neither replied until morning. Daniel called first. "They're desperate," he said. "That's good for us, it means they're sloppy. Keep everything." Evan was next. "I think Sandra's breaking," he said. "When people like her realize they've lost control, they do something reckless. Be careful." I wanted to believe I could handle it, that I was still one step ahead. But that night, when I walked into my kitchen, something caught my eye, a faint smear on the back door handle. Red, oily, metallic. Blood. And when I checked the security footage again, I realized Sandra hadn't come alone that night. Someone else had been hiding in the shadows, just out of view. I froze in place, my heart thundering in my chest. The red smear on the handle was small, but unmistakable. My first thought was that it had to be from Sandra, maybe a cut or scrape, but something deep in my gut said otherwise. I opened the security app again, scrubbing through the footage frame by frame. There she was, standing under the porch light, motionless, staring at my front door. Then, as she turned to leave, a shape appeared at the edge of the camera feed. A man. Broad shoulders. Hooded jacket. Standing so still he almost blended into the darkness. I paused the footage and zoomed in, but the image was too grainy to make out a face. My hands were shaking as I sent the clip to Evan. He called within minutes. "You were right," he said. "She wasn't alone." "Who is he?" I asked. "I'm working on it," he replied. "But whoever he is, he's been to your house before. Look at the timestamp, same night your father's car was spotted." The realization hit me like ice water. They weren't just watching, they were planning something. I could feel it in every nerve of my body. Evan promised to send the footage to local authorities, and I locked every door, double-checked the windows, and kept a kitchen knife beside my bed. That night, I barely slept, every sound in the house making my pulse spike. The next morning, Evan called again, his voice tight. "We identified the guy. His name's Gavin Doyle, the same broker your parents hired. He's done work like this before, fake transactions, intimidation, even property vandalism to scare people into signing over assets." My stomach dropped. "So they sent him to my house?" "Looks that way," he said grimly. "And we found something else. He's got prior arrests for stalking and breaking and entering. If he's working for your parents, they've crossed a line into criminal territory." I felt sick. "Can they be arrested for this?" "We're close," he said. "But we need one undeniable act of harassment tied to them. If Doyle comes back, don't confront him, call the police immediately." That evening, as the sun set, I tried to distract myself by working on my laptop in the living room. Around 9 p.m., the motion alert went off again. My stomach clenched. I opened the camera feed, and my blood ran cold. Doyle was standing at the edge of my driveway, his face turned toward the camera this time. He lifted his phone, pointed it at my window, and snapped a picture before walking away. I didn't hesitate. I called 911. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the street. Officers combed the area, but he was gone. Officer Kim arrived and took my statement while I showed her the footage. "He's escalating," she said firmly. "We're filing for a protection order tonight." Evan arrived soon after, visibly shaken. "You did the right thing," he said. "We've got what we need. Between this footage and the forged transfers, we can finally put this on record." But the moment I started to breathe again, my phone buzzed with a new message. No number. No name. Just one photo of me, standing in the doorway with the police behind me, timestamped 5 minutes ago. Someone had taken it from across the street. That was when I understood the danger wasn't coming. It was already here, and this time, I wasn't sure anyone could stop it. The police stayed outside for hours that night, their flashlights sweeping across every inch of my property. Officer Kim checked my doors, my windows, even the back gate, but there was no sign of Doyle or anyone else. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching from just beyond the light. I stood at the window, staring at the empty street, and whispered to myself, they're not going to win. When the officers finally left, the silence that followed was deafening. I sat in the living room, every lamp on, the security feed open on my phone. For the first time, I wasn't scared, I was angry. I had spent years letting that family define me, guilt me, and break me. Not anymore. The next morning, Evan called with an update. Good news and bad news, he said. The good, the judge approved an emergency protection order. The bad, Doyle vanished. He didn't show up for his last 2 check-ins. He's off the grid. My stomach tightened. So he's still out there. Yes, Evan replied, his voice low. But it won't last. He'll make a mistake. They always do. I spent the next few days on edge, barely sleeping, jumping at every noise. Then, on the 4th night, around midnight, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. At first, nothing, just static. Then a voice, low and calm, you should have helped them, Maya. My blood ran cold. Who is this? I demanded, but the call disconnected. I stood frozen, staring at the phone screen, heart racing. Within seconds, I forwarded the number to Evan and Officer Kim. Kim called me back within minutes. Don't go anywhere alone, she said. We'll increase patrols near your house. Keep your phone on you at all times. The next day, the situation escalated. Evan met me in person, carrying a flash drive. We got access to Doyle's storage unit, he said quietly. You're going to want to sit down for this. I sat at my dining table while he plugged the drive into my laptop. On the screen appeared dozens of folders, each labeled with names I didn't recognize, except one, M. Quinn. Inside were surveillance photos of my house, my office, my car, even shots from inside my backyard. The last photo stopped me cold. It was from the night before, showing me standing by my window with my phone to my ear. He's been following you for weeks, Evan said. But that's not the worst part. He clicked into another folder labeled transfers, and there, laid out in meticulous detail, were forged property and account documents, each one marked with Sandra's signature. Your stepmother isn't just complicit, he said. She's coordinating it. I felt sick. So my father knew? Evan nodded slowly. He's the one funding Doyle. I pressed my palms to my face, trying to hold back tears. They've lost everything, I whispered. They're trying to take me down with them. He looked at me, steady and calm. Then it's time to stop reacting, Maya. It's time to fight back. That night, I packed a small bag and left home, staying in a hotel under a different name. I didn't tell anyone where I was, not even Evan. I turned off my phone and sat in the dark, feeling both terrified and strangely free. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for something to happen, I was deciding what happened next. The next morning, I met with the one person who could finally turn the tables, an FBI agent who had been investigating Doyle for years. And when I told her my story, she said 6 words that changed everything. Your family's not just broke, Maya. They're criminal. The FBI agent's name was Agent Rivera, a calm, razor-focused woman who spoke like someone used to peeling back layers of lies. We met in a quiet conference room downtown, the kind of place that smelled faintly of paper and coffee. Evan was there too, sitting across from me with his notebook open. Rivera slid a thick folder across the table. We've been watching Doyle for a while, she said. But until now, we didn't have a clear connection tying him to your family. Your evidence changes that. I stared at the folder, my pulse thudding in my ears. What happens now? Rivera opened the file, revealing pages of documents, bank transfers, shell companies, and emails between Doyle and my father. We have enough to charge your father and stepmother with conspiracy, identity theft, and financial fraud. But we'll need your testimony to close the case. I swallowed hard. You'll have it, I said. Rivera nodded. Good. We'll handle the rest from here. You'll have protection until this is over. For the first time in months, I felt the tiniest flicker of relief. It wasn't over yet, but the end was finally in sight. The arrests happened 2 days later. I didn't see them in person, but the images flooded the news. My father, handcuffed, head lowered. Sandra, her face streaked with tears, shouting something I couldn't hear as agents led her away. The headline read, "Local couple arrested in $1.2 million fraud scheme, broker at large." I watched in silence, emotions I couldn't name crashing together, anger, grief, exhaustion, and something that almost felt like closure. Evan called soon after. "It's done," he said simply. "They'll be facing serious time. The FBI will recover what they can. Doyle's still missing, but his network's collapsing. You're safe now." Safe. The word didn't feel real. For so long, I'd been looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next hit, the next message, the next betrayal. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without fear. When I woke up, sunlight spilled across the hotel sheets, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. A few weeks later, I stood outside the courthouse for the final hearing. Rivera was there, standing beside me. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "Most people would have stayed silent." I nodded. "I almost did," I admitted. "But I've been silent my whole life. It's what they counted on." She gave a small smile. "Not anymore." When it was over, I didn't look back. I sold the house, donated half of what I recovered to a women's legal fund, and moved across the country to start over. New home, new number, new name on the mailbox, Maya Quinn finally belonged to herself. Sometimes I still think about them, about the family dinners where I tried to fit in, the birthdays they forgot, the way Sandra looked at me when she realized I'd built a life they couldn't control. But now, instead of bitterness, I feel something simpler, distance. Because I finally understood that family isn't who shares your blood, it's who doesn't drain it from you. In the end, losing them wasn't the tragedy I once thought it was the beginning of my freedom.